Yo, what up everybody? So in this video, I'm going to be doing a rust removal process for my motorcycle fuel tank, and I'm also going to be applying a tank sealer. And this part over here is essential. And the reason I think it's essential is because I've actually done this whole process about 2 months ago. So this fuel tank was completely rusty and the engine was having problems. The carburetor was getting clogged up of rust particles, and so I was forced to do this process. And so I took off the tank, used this product right here, 5 liter bottle of Evapo-Rust. I kept it into the fuel tank for 48 hours in total. About 90% of the rust was removed, and so I was really happy. I thought job was done, put the bike back together. 2 months later, carburetors are clogged full of rust again, and tank is super rusty. And so that's why I got this product this time, and it's basically like a thin coating that coats the inside of the tank, and it shouldn't rust again in the future. So yeah, I'm going to show you the process. Let's go outside and start the job. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is drain the fuel tank. Here's the fuel level sensor. As you can see, there's a bit of surface rust. Alright, I've got the majority of the fuel removed from the tank. Have a look at this. That's a lot of rust in there. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is hose the tank. If you have a water blaster, that's even better. Water blaster inside of the tank. Get all of the rust particles out. So I'm going to stick this cloth down here at the bottom to try to get all the excess water up. Alright, so I drained the tank of all the excess water and rust. Now it's time to dry it before we put in the rust remover. I've just got it on heater at the moment. It's going to take a while to dry out like this, but I don't have a heat gun. You could also use a hairdryer if you had a hairdryer, or some compressed air would also help. Alright, so as I've got the tank drying, I can show you what the rust looks like on the inside. So as you can see, the rust, there's quite a lot of rust in there. It's not very deep, it's kind of surface level, but it's still thick enough that it builds up and clogs up the fuel system. So yeah, definitely needs to be dealt with. Alright, so the tank is fully dried out. I left it on the heater for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and so we're ready to move on to the next process. The next thing we're going to do is use this rust remover. So the instruction manual says to let the rust soak for 12 to 24 hours for heavy rust. So my plan is to let the rust remover soak in here for 8 hours on this side, 8 hours on this side, 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours, and then another 8. So that would be 48 hours in total. Cool. Time to chuck it in. And lock it up, give it a slush around. Alright, so I'm going to start it in the flat position, and every 8 hours I'm going to swap it around, and every once in a while I'm going to come and give it a shake. Okay, so the tank has been sitting for 48 hours in the rust remover, and it looks way better. I would say 95% of it has been removed. Try to give you a look at it right now. Whoo! Look at that. So as you can see, looks way better. You can see the bare metal. So here's a look through the fuel level sensor hole, and as you can see there's a couple pipes that run along and they're basically in the center of the tank. So since I only filled the tank with 5 liters of the rust remover, they never got submerged, so the rust never got completely removed. So if you're doing this, it'd be a better idea to use even more liters and fill the tank up as much as you could. Okay, so as per the instructions of the rust remover, once I drained the tank, I gave it a thorough clean with water, and it says to immediately dry the tank. And you need to thoroughly dry the tank. There can't be any moisture at all before you put in this tank sealer. So we got to make sure that it's completely dry, and that's why this time I've got a heat gun as well to make sure there's absolutely no moisture in there. Sweet, the tank is all dried up and we can finally start putting in this tank sealer. So there's a few things we got to remove from the tank before we put in the tank sealer. It's actually going to harden up and solidify, and so things like your fuel pump, fuel filter, they'll get clogged up. Any valves, they'll get clogged up. So we got to block those or remove them. So for me, my bike is carbureted, so I had to remove off the fuel outlet valve. There's a little filter on here. That part would have got clogged up, so I had to remove it. Second thing I removed was the fuel level sensor. The electronic part on here is not going to read when that coating is on it, so it has to be removed. And I'm actually going to use this hole to fill up the tank sealer. And lastly, we got the tank lid itself. There's just 5 Allen keys, so it's pretty easy to remove. That way we can get a nice seal over here. Sweet, so it's finally time to put in the tank sealer. So firstly, it says on the back of the can, do not shake the can when you're about to use it. Crack it open, stir it until the pigment is evenly mixed. For me, it took a good 5 minutes until the pigment was actually evenly mixed. Alright, so the instructions say, pour the liquid into the tank, shake it around for about 15 minutes until the tank is evenly coated, and then you drain the excess. However, this can itself is 250 ml and it claims to be able to coat a 16-liter tank. So my tank is actually exactly 16 liters. So I might not even need to drain the excess. I'm going to put it in and see how it goes. If there's any left over, we'll drain it. If not, I think we'll just keep it in as it is. Sweet, I'm giving it a final stir and I'm going to put it in. Make sure to get all of it, don't want to waste any. So, I'm going to take this shot so I can shake it around. And I'm actually going to put these screws back inside, and the reason is so that the screw holes don't get clogged up. Alright, so I'm just going to shake it around for the next 15 minutes in all different types of directions. It says to roll it around, not to be too vicious with it. But I want to make sure every bit of it is evenly coated. Alright, so it's been 5 minutes of me shaking around this tank in all types of directions, and I can't feel any more of the liquid moving around in here. So I would say that the 250 ml can was probably just the right size, or the bare minimum, for the 16-liter tank. I don't think I'm going to have any excess to tip out and get rid of. So next for me is just let the tank sit. Well, for the next 15 minutes to 30 minutes, I'm still going to be shaking this around. Maybe even for the next hour. But after that, I'm going to remove off the tape, and then it's a 4-day cure time for this tank sealer. Sweat! Sweat! Alright everybody, so it's 6 days later, the tank sealer is finally set, and I want to show you guys inside. But before that, I'm going to explain what I ended up actually doing. So initially the plan was to keep it for 4 days, that's what the instructions said, but I actually kept it for 6 days. and that's because I put in an extra thick layer of the tank sealer. So the instruction said put it inside, roll it around for a few minutes, and then drain the excess. However, since my tank seemed pretty bad, I wanted to do an extra thick layer of the tank sealer. So I kept it in, and I didn't think I would need to drain any of the tank sealer at all. But after an hour, I checked inside the tank and there was liquid inside. So I kept shaking it around. After 2 hours, looked inside, there was still liquid build up inside. After 3 hours, after 4 hours, there was still build up inside. So after 4 hours, I ended up draining some of the excess fluid from the drain hole at the bottom of the tank. And then, even then, I put in quite a thick layer of the tank sealer. So I decided to give it 6 whole days in total, and the tank looks completely dried out now. Alright, so I also wanted to mention that the tank sealer itself, it feels like a paint, it looks like a paint when it's in its liquid form, and it also stains like a paint, by the way, so make sure you don't get it on your tank, your flooring, etc. It's going to be really hard to get off. But I wanted to mention that when it solidifies, it basically feels like a plastic. So I wasn't sure what to expect, but yeah, once it's solid, it starts to feel like a plastic, not a paint anymore. And the second thing I wanted to mention is that it makes sense why the tank sealer on the back of the can says do not shake. It's because the sealer itself, when you put it in a thick layer, it likes to expand, and I guess if there's a really thick layer of it, it's going to leave air bubbles on the center if you shake it up as well. So let's take a look inside the tank. So if you look at the outside lip, it's a bit rough. That's just because of where the duct tape was attached to. I'll clean that up with a chisel. If you have a look in the inside, it looks like a layer of paint has coated the inside, a grayish layer of paint. Ooh. Focus. So here's a look from the back of the tank, and as you can see, I managed to get the coating on the pipes itself as well, so I'm pretty happy with that. Alright everybody, it's time for its first stop. Hopefully she runs good. Alright everybody, thanks for watching. I hope this helped. We'll catch you next time. Peace!